Hey everyone, and you might notice, why is the camera so low? Why are you not having a little keyboard to type on? Well, currently I'm not recording this on my computer as I normally would, as I left it at my grandparents' house, so I'm stuck recording on my phone, and as such, I'm going to have to edit on my phone. So if there are any editing mistakes throughout the video, that will be why. But nonetheless, we are going to be looking at Clash at the Castle today. That was a little bit earlier on today, just about 5 minutes ago, in fact. And we saw 5 matches take place across the card. I did not do very well in my predictions. I went 2 and 3. But let's go through every match in order and what I thought of the match, who won, who should have won, and whether or not the match was good overall. We're going to get started with the starting match of the show, which is Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in an I Quit match for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. This is an entertaining match to kick off the show, and once I saw this, I was like, awesome, this is going to be a great pay-per-view. We'll get to that later. But nonetheless, it was a very entertaining I Quit match. Was it a little bit long? Yes, clocking in at about 30 minutes. However, I do think they used all of those to do at least something. They didn't make it just laying around or maybe, clubbing blow back and forth. They at least filled those minutes, but you could have shaved off 5 or 6 minutes and it wouldn't really have affected the match as much. Overall, out of 10, I'd give it about an 8. It was entertaining. Cody won after trying to threaten Styles with the steel steps, but Styles said, no, I quit. Cody then proceeded to hit him with the steps anyways. Now, a lot of people said, AJ might win because Cody's mom is there, but Cody's mom actually told Cody, hit him with the steps. Do it now. Was being very, very mean towards AJ Styles, smacked him a few times after he was yelling at her, etc. Cody bled, so did AJ. A very silly spot where AJ was going for the phenomenal forearm with a steel chain, got a chair thrown at his head, fell backwards off the ropes into a table, and collapsed. It was very goofy, and someone made an edit on Twitter of it with like cartoon sound effects, and it was very good. But nonetheless, an 8 out of 10 match, quite enjoyed. Then we went on to the women's tag team title match featuring Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair defending the titles against Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, the hometown girls, and Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. This was not the best, I will say. It wasn't bad per se, but there were a lot of mess-ups towards the end of the match that really devalued how well the quality of it was throughout the entire affair. So the end came when Jade Cargill was hitting a move right on, I believe, Shayna Baszler, which allowed Isla Dawn to come in, hit her with a German suplex, run in for the cover, and the hometown girls got the win, defeating the long-reigning tag team champions. A lot of people thought Jade and Bianca might be champs for a very long time, but in fact have only been champions for about 2 months up to this point. So a bit of a shock win here. I didn't expect it. I projected Jade and Bianca to win anyways, but I'm 1-1 up to this point in the show, and I'm hoping to myself a few minutes ago, well, I'm 1-1, not great, but I'm almost certain that I'll at least be 3-2. Oh boy. We move on to Chad Gable versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. This is a fun match. It was enjoyable, and I don't think it was bad until the ending, which is something you can say about a lot of the matches on this show. If you go back to the women's tag title match, it's a it's a good match. Then the ending comes. Jade Cargill messes up like a springboard from the ropes. It looks really terrible. And then they kind of like toss each other around, hit each other a little too hard, throw each other in the wrong spot. And the same thing applies to all 3 of the next matches. This show is riddled with great matches, or at least good matches, and terrible endings, or just bad endings in the slightest, save for Cody AJ, and even that one is a bit questionable with how it was done. But going back to Chad Gable versus Sami Zayn, this is a very technical match, not surprising. Then you have Otis and Maxine Dupree at ringside to enhance the storytelling. What I had predicted going into the show was for Chad Gable to win after Otis turned on him, but the Creeds came out and beat up Otis. How many of those things did I get? 0. None of those things happened. Not a single one. What is Triple H doing? Triple H's biggest problem with booking nowadays is that he thinks long-term storytelling is long-term storytelling. He means, this is a long-term storytelling kind of show. So we need to make sure that all these stories have the longest possible build to them and do not finish until roughly WrestleMania. And that's the problem with this feud, because this has been happening for months now. Months on end. What does that mean? Nothing, because Otis still hasn't turned. It's honestly obscene at this point, because what happens is Chad is in the corner, Sami goes for a haluva kick, Chad moves, Sami stops, he's like, because Maxine's standing on the corner, He's like, oh, sorry. Chad catches him. Chaos Theory only gets a 2 count. And then a little later on, Sami tosses Chad into Maxine on accident, tackles Maxine's injured foot. Otis is like, "Argh." So he leaves with Maxine. And Chad's like, hey, where are you guys going? In the middle of the ring. So he walks to the corner like, hey, come back. But they're leaving. He turns around, haluva kick, 1, 2, 3. Sami wins. Why? Chad Gable is perfectly set up to win this title. But I think what they're trying to do, and it's annoying, but it, I guess, kind of makes sense, is what they're trying to have, and Money in the Bank is in Toronto, or somewhere thereabouts, which is Sami Zayn's home country. Have him beat him there, get him a bunch of heat, voila. But at the same time, like, oh my gosh, honestly, I don't care how much heat he gets because it just needs to be over at this point. Because Triple H thinks, along with his matches, that every story needs to be as long as possible and take up as much time as possible. This is why I don't like the Bloodline, because the current version of the Bloodline, because they take up about an hour of TV every week, not letting other stars get built up. I'm going to come to that argument a little later on in the show, but nonetheless, yeesh, not amazing, but pretty good, worthwhile match to watch. Just stop like 2 minutes before the finish comes. Then we move on to the Women's World Title match between Bayley and Piper Niven with Chelsea Green at ringside. This is, again, a good match. Honestly, a great match even. With a terrible ending. Man, it happened again. So, basically, it's a good match, going back and forth, hitting a lot of big, powerful moves, not surprising. A little bit of high-flying action in there as well. And Bayley is about to win the match. She has caught Piper in, like, a crucifix hold, like a tarantula hold, and is going to rotate for the crucifix driver. She rotates, Piper over-rotates, so she has to pull Piper back down, then initiates the cover, and gets the 3. But it seems like there's way too much time for there to be a 3 count in there, and it just really devalues this whole show. What every match on this show, oh, yes, I like this match, oh. Well, that was boring. And then that happens over and over again, so each match I'm not feeling as happy about. Like, with the first match, I'm like, yeah, cool. Second match, I'm like, yeah, oh. Alright. Third match, I'm like, oh. Fourth match, I'm like, and then the main event we'll get to in a moment. But nonetheless, it's a great match, a lot of power moves. Bayley does a pretty interesting one on the apron. It causes Piper to get her head absolutely rocked in the middle of the ring. But nonetheless, Chelsea Green interferes a little bit. She gets ejected from ringside, comes back in a luchador mask. I guess this is Chelsea Verde or something, or whatever. She gets ejected, not really, but she just kind of disappears a little bit after that. And then the finish comes, terrible finish. The crowd are kind of deflated by this because they're in Scotland. Wow. You have 2 Scottish people lose in the penultimate and main event of the show. Come on. Triple H, what are you doing? But speaking of that main event, let's get to it. It's Drew McIntyre versus Damien Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. Oh my gosh. This match is so good. No biases here. This is a really good match between 2 talented guys. Now, Damien gets hurt almost immediately because he's trying to do a spot where he hits the second rope and bounces off of that into like a senton maneuver to the outside. But his foot slips on that rope, gets caught between the first and second ropes, and he basically breaks his ankle, or at least sprains it, and hits like his neck on the apron. So he is really hurt by this spot. Drew kind of plays off of it like, look at this. This is your world champion. And then, they resume normal services. But nonetheless, it's just a very painful looking spot. Damien is hobbling throughout the rest of this match, and he does a few impressive moves while still having this. Like, he does a Hurricane Rana, which is a very impressive move for someone the size of Damien, who's like 6'7". Yeah, he also does a Razor's Edge with one leg. He does his finisher, the South of Heaven, with one leg. And Drew, meanwhile, is keeping up, hitting his own moves. Glasgow Kiss, they're in Glasgow. They do a Claymore spot through the barricade. Damien hits the back of his head on a chair, a steel chair. Damien will definitely be very healthy. He'll be perfectly fine. But yeah, it's terrible for Damien, but it's a good match. And then the finish. Oh my gosh, Triple H. Please, I'm begging you. So the finish comes. So Damien accidentally hits the referee. The referee goes flying outside the ring, hits the barricade even. So Drew hits a Claymore. Boom. Damien's down. Drew goes in the cover, but there's no referee, so the crowd's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they see a referee run down to the ring. They're like, yes! And we only can see the back of this referee. So basically, it looks something like this. And that's really all we can see. We can just see this referee running towards the ring. We don't really know who it is or what he's doing. We can presume he's trying to call the match. But nonetheless, once the referee gets to the ring, he slides in. 1, 2, and he stops. And then Drew's like, he's waiting for the 3. He's like, okay, come on. Where's the 3? And then he looks up at the referee. It's CM Punk, of course. CM Punk's like, ha ha ha, you're not going to get the 3. Now it's only 2. So Drew attacks him, just chokes somebody a little bit. But CM Punk kicks him in the balls. Drew's like, oh my goodness gracious. Damien comes up from behind. Oh, south of heaven. Boom. Other referee comes back. 1, 2, 3. Drew loses. Again. You know, I don't want to be mad at this show. I don't. I want to enjoy it. But I can't. It's just not good. Like, imagine if you're watching a movie. Like, imagine your favorite movie right now. And the movie ends with the main character getting into a car. And this is a very likable main character. You enjoy this main character. The car blows up. Just completely explodes. And you see the head of the main character fly out of the side of the car. And it lands right in front of the TV. And then the villain, who may or may not have been killed earlier in the movie, somehow comes back, stomps on the hero's head, and says, thought you were going to have a good ending. And then the movie fades to black. Same thing. There's no difference. Because all these matches, save for the first one, have just awful endings, and it really lowers how much I enjoyed what I was seeing. But nonetheless, that's my opinions on the show. As I said, I went 2 and 3, did not have very good predictions. How about you? Did you enjoy the show? Did you not enjoy the show? Leave it down in the comments down below. You should have a good day, good evening, good night, good morning, good dawn, good dusk, good whatever. You should watch any former or future episodes of this channel, and goodbye.